Okay. Today we're going to cover the process of how, right? And then the most important process of taking action. So as laid back and as weird as this is going to sound, if you're listening to this, right, and you have fat ass, you are running out of money in your bank account, you have an issue in your relationship, I don't really care what the problem is. If you're truly honest with yourself and you sit down on the corner of your bed and you have an honest conversation with yourself, you will find the answers. You know what you need to do, right?
I agree.
Over and above that, if you're somebody that's already kind of taken the steps to improve their life, yes, guidance is a great thing. And there's a lot of people who offer guidance, right? Gurus, motivational speakers. What I want to cover today is how to not get stuck into the dopamine hit that comes with people selling motivation, right? Because let's be honest, with social media and the amount of people you have, there's a lot of people who they hit on those emotional pain points and sell you a good story. You know, it's like watching Rudy and getting all revved up when he runs up on the field. But if you actually look back at Rudy's life, was pretty hard, right? You know, like the entire movie is that 3 to I think it's like 15 seconds he's on the field, right? Much. That kid literally killed himself for 15 seconds of fame. Now, it looks great on a film. Yeah. Right? It looks great on a film and it gives you motivation and you're going, oh, I'm going to go do what Rudy did. But watch the whole fucking movie. The kid fucking almost killed himself.
Yeah.
Right. So the point I'm making is how, and the only how I can give you is how do you transfer the information, the motivation that I need to make changes in my life. How do we transfer that into real world results?
Yeah.
Things that are tangible, things that I can go, okay, I've started this today. How do I stick to it? First of all, how do I stick to it? Let's take one step back. What is it that I should start with? Right. I'm going to lay this out. I think all the tenets of self-improvement are good. Mind, body, spirit, all of them are good, and you can each one has a dive point. But I feel training and nutrition, getting your ass back in shape for men, is always, it's the gateway. It's this particular, let's call it the gateway, the gateway tenet. Is once you're in shape, confidence goes up, right? You feel better about yourself. You know, it's the whole tenet of delayed gratification, right? I can tell you this from experience that the taste of having abs tastes way better than any food you can put in front of me right now.
100%.
I have to convince myself and I have to take that hard road now for the benefits later, the delayed gratification.
Yeah.
But my experience tells me that any man listening, if you go, I'm not sure where to make these changes, whether it's be, I want to improve my relationship, business, usually it's a combination of everything. I want to be better in relationships. It is for me, it is for you.
Yeah.
I want to be better in my relationships. I want to be a better human being, a better man. I want to find purpose. I want to look for the things I want to do that are going to make me feel like I am worthwhile as a man.
Yeah.
Right? That I have purpose, that I am driven, that I can stand up and go, you know what, I am here to do that. And I think fitness and health and taking control of your health is that gateway that kind of segues you into it. And there's a couple of reasons, right? Is you've mentioned this before, is I'm in shape, I'm cardiovascularly fit, I'm strong. If, God forbid, something happens and my loved ones are around me, I can take action.
Yeah.
Right? That's an important one. The second one is, regardless of how you look at the world, when you walk into a room and you are in shape, I will tell you from experience, business becomes easier.
Yeah.
As much as we'd like to think that people do not judge you on first impressions, you gave a great rendition of first impressions, how important they are.
They matter.
That first impression, if you are fit and healthy, the person's immediate mindset goes, this person has discipline.
Yeah.
They apply that discipline and I can see it. It changes how they treat you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So for me, I think fitness and health is the segue of how you establish that. Now, let's break that down even further. The first thing you've got to do is obviously you've got to get into some sort of exercise program. Now, depending on where you're starting, you've mentioned before, as simple as putting on a weighted vest and going for a walk. Right? If you can't imagine putting on a weight vest, just go for a walk. Just get your ass off the couch.
No doubt.
We've spoken about the Ric Flair warm-ups that we do, 100 squats, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups.
Yep.
You can do it in your lounge or next to your bed, and you can start low, work your way up until you get to that level. And I guarantee you, if you can, within 10 to 15 minutes, do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats, you are pretty damn fit.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And then taking control of the food sources you eat, right? Which, as horrible as this sounds, gets a lot easier when you're in the process. If we had this conversation about controlling your food, Kevin is the best example of this, right? And I want him to give you his insight. He was already down this journey of fitness, and the guy's a physical specimen. He's a big guy. He looks good, but the one part that he was struggling with was trying to control his food intake.
No.
Right. So now, talk me through that process. So you come to me, we sit down, I lay out a diet for you, which and anyone listening, that's not easy. It's an elimination diet which takes away everything that you can think of from a process perspective and pretty much just puts you down on meat.
Yeah.
And it's very laid out. There's a fasting element to it where you have to break down and not eat for a certain period of time. And then you start adding in meat, right?
Yeah.
And it could be tuna, chicken, beef, it doesn't really matter. But the point is you get enough protein in and fats in to sustain you, and you do that for 30 days.
Yeah.
When I first gave you that diet, what did you think of it?
Well, to clarify, the first diet wasn't the fasting diet.
Which
You
one was
had
the
me eating
first one?
5 days, or 5 times a day. I was eating...
Right, but it was a 30-day program,
It was
right?
a 30-day program. I was eating 5 times a day, and it was essentially all meat. But what I thought about it initially was, oh, fuck, I can't do this, honestly. So I was eating much better than I'd ever been at that point in my life. Mm-hmm. So my immediate reaction was, oh, fuck, I can't do this. But then as I really started to break it down, I'm like, I can do this.
Okay.
So I made the change in my head.
So let's talk about that change, right? For somebody who, through their life, has struggled with trying to control their food, right? Which all of us have their struggles, and some of us are further along than others. But coming from a background where you didn't have parents that were into fitness or health, right? There was a certain cultural way you were taught to eat.
Yep.
And regardless of how much we'd like to think we can control everything in our lives, there's aspects that come with that, right? So that health and fitness that you get into, and you start controlling your food, talk me through that mind switch. What exactly happened when you looked at this versus every other diet that you've looked at, where you kind of follow it and you get off? And I'm talking from experience here as well. I've had lots of diets that I've had up. I kind of followed for 3 days, and then I'm off the wagon, right?
Yeah.
What was that in your mind? What was the change?
So I do want to clarify something for me personally, and this comes from my wife, Sam. I don't necessarily buy into diets in the sense of the word, like, hey, I'm going to go on a diet and eat nothing but salads. I believe in diet means that's my meal plan.
Yes.
Okay, so I do want to clarify that for listeners.
That's a good point.
So I know we both agree on that, so I want to clarify that for listeners.
Diet, on what Kevin's saying, is diet's such a loaded word. Right, we'll talk about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, right?
Yeah.
The first 3 words of a diet, it says die.
Yeah.
Literally, it says die.
Yeah.
Right, diet.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to die this thing. So Kevin makes a great point, and I try to rehash the word as much as possible and talk about eating plan, food choices. It's the better way to say it. So I think from this point on, let's take the word diet and put it aside, because it's got a lot of negative connotations.
It does. So for me though, what I think is also important to highlight, I struggled in the kitchen, but I was in a place where I was actually in control. I was in a place where I do understand health and wellness and nutrition because of my wife and all that she's taught me over the years. And I generally ate clean. But I would have my weak moments. I had too many weak moments, right? So I would sneak the cookies or the snacks or potato chips here or there. So I did too much snacking outside of my clean eating diet, if you will. So what shifted for me though was that I realized if at the beginning of last year, I decided I wanted to have a 6-pack. So we can say that, but to actually execute on that, like it's 2 different things, right? So I realized I have to be intentional with what I'm doing. I have to make this change. When I first saw the meal plan, I was like, shit, this is going to be hard to do. But I've already done hard things. I followed 75 Hard and actually achieved that program with flying colors. So I knew I was capable of doing something very difficult. And then there's a place now that I've gotten back to mentally where I actually take a lot of pride in doing hard things. I really enjoy it. So I was like, I got this. Like, let me do a prep week. So I actually did a prep week to get into it, where I would cut out a lot of other stuff that I was like, and by cut out other stuff, I mean like protein shakes or protein bars.
Yeah. Processed foods, right?
Yeah, I mean,
not necessarily bad for you.
Yeah, I wasn't eating a lot of processed foods.
Yeah.
There was just some protein bars here or there. If I was in a pinch, I'd eat some almonds. I would eat some, yogurt. So I would take that. I took that prep week and said, well, I'm only going to eat that if I'm like fucking hungry, like starved. But then the following week, when I was go time, I was like, all right, day one, I'm only thinking about today.
Yeah.
And I really just said, like, take it one meal at a time. Don't think ahead. And my wife has always said to me too, you've said to me as well, food is fuel. Food is not pleasure. And so when I finally realized, like, okay, food is fuel here. Drink water in between meals, like coffee, like drink a little bit of coffee. I didn't drink too much coffee, but a little bit. If I needed an afternoon pick me up cup, like I would drink a cup of coffee in the afternoon or something to and only black coffee. Like I wouldn't put anything like cream or sugar in it. So anyway, like I just told myself, like, you can do this. Okay. This isn't your first time to do something hard. One step at a time, one meal at a time, one day at a time, 1 week at a time.
Okay.
And that was a huge difference for me.
So this leads into the next aspect of where I'm leading with this, right? Is I generally find switching over to an eating program and a diet for men is, like I say, it's the gateway drug. It's the easiest kind of road into it, right? However, in order to take that, and this is the same as scaling a business, right? Yeah. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to scale your self-development. You're starting with your body, right? You're cleaning up your eating habits. You're taking control of weight training and making sure that you're strong, you're fit, you're cardiovascularly healthy. That is the one part. Yeah. Now what you want to do is you want to transfer this into your business, right? That same discipline, that mindset, that consistent. You want to take those aspects of discipline and highlighting in a different way, and you want to push that into your relationship. Yeah. And then what you want to do is you want to push that into your spirit and find, where do you connect with the universe, with God, with Christianity? Where do you find it? Yeah. Right? And the reason you want to connect all of these together is balance. Yeah. Right? So that you can find a purpose in life of why you work your ass off to make money and why it's important to you. Yeah. Now, in that said, I think a big factor that a lot of guys particularly forget of is trauma, right?
Yeah. Can I interject?
Yeah,
let's hold trauma. I'm gonna jot a note so we can come back to trauma. I think a really important piece to talk about from the beginning of what you started to say versus right there. That's a really good moment to interject extreme ownership. Mm-hmm. So I think you had said, like, I think how you said it was like something like look yourself in the mirror. I'll just say it that way. Look yourself in the mirror and decide that I'm responsible for everything that happens. Yes. I'm the one that put the food in my mouth. I'm the one that followed my relationships. Mm-hmm. I'm the one who had the issues. Yep. I'm the one that did this. I'm the one that did that. Trauma plays a big part of this, and we are still in control. Mm-hmm. And we have to recognize that, like, the things that have happened in the past are really important to address. Yeah. Because if they go unaddressed and they stay unaddressed, they're going to continue to be issues. They're going to give other people generationally a trauma. Yeah. So I think that goes back to ownership of all of it. And that is accountability and ownership is the most important thing. But then that breaks down back to trauma. Why do people struggle, right? Mm-hmm. And men. Why do men struggle? I find a lot of guys can get the diet and the training knocked down for a period of time. But if they don't start dealing with trauma, and this is why Kevin went back and spoke about accountability and taking ownership. Yeah. If you cannot take accountability for your own trauma, your own bullshit, your own baggage, your own things you're carrying behind you that have come from whatever you've done in your life, if you cannot turn around, assess it, look at it, take accountability, don't blame anyone for it, and start letting go of those pieces you're carrying, right? And saying, you know what, I need to start letting go and move forward and not focusing on what I've had back. Yeah. Accountability becomes impossible. Yeah, ownership becomes impossible. For sure.
So that trauma of what you've carried behind you, and I feel a good way to do it is once you enter the realm of figuring out what your body can do, pushing yourself, having some confidence in how you look. Yeah. Right. it might sound superficial as fuck, but when you can
That's
take your
true.
shirt off, right, and you can stand there and look in the mirror and go, fuck, I don't look bad. I look pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It changes the way you interact
It
with
is
people,
true.
right? All of a sudden, you push your shoulders back, you stand up proud,
Yeah.
you talk better, you interact on a level that changes almost night and day. And
Yeah.
I could see these changes in you. Like, Kevin came to us, and by no accounts, make no mistake, when Kevin came, it's not as if Kevin was a 300-pound fucking blob. He was a pretty well put together athlete, right? Who was looking to take what he was doing and kind of get into another level, right? And he got into this plan, and within a very short period of time, he got a noticeable difference from dropping 20 to 30 pounds within like 2 months.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, changing how people saw him, because all of a sudden they go, oh my God, look at Kevin.
Yeah.
He was already intimidating. He was really a nice big guy, was in good shape. By no account would I look at him if he walked down the road and go, that's a fat. I go, that's a big guy, a lot of potential.
Yeah.
That would be my honest opinion. I'll look at that and go, that's a guy with a shit ton of potential, right? It went from a shit ton of potential to here it is.
Right.
Here is someone who's taken all this and put it together. But my experience with myself and just knowing you for this point is a big reason why I felt, and I want you to dive into this, why I felt that you were able to take that and go, I'm going to fucking take accountability for this, is because what you had started doing long before you and me even became friends, is you started taking accountability for your everything.
Always. That's the athlete in me. And I think, and I know we're going to do a full episode on mental health, but like I have a group of guys that I played college baseball with that all just generally good people, good human beings. And unfortunately, several of them, there's I think our count is up to 6 dudes that have struggled with mental health. That a few took their own lives, a few dealt with substance issues and overdoses, who passed away, and some others for other reasons. Anyway, my point of even bringing this up is a group of athletes, right? These are all D1 athletes.
Yeah.
And of that, let's call the stat, about 20% of us of that era that I played ball in have really lost their battle with mental health. Okay, and again, we're going to go down a road of mental health at a later time. That's not what this is about. This is about how do you have that many guys that were like elite athletes,
Had everything going for them.
everything going for them. You like one guy just recent, like from the outside looking in, had it all.
Yeah.
Like everyone was shocked by what happened with him. How does that go down this path? In my opinion, is you have 2 choices when shit hits the fan in yourself, in your life, right? Is you can either run from it and point the finger at everybody else.
True.
Or you can take extreme ownership. I think Jocko talks about extreme ownership. I think it's Jocko. You can take extreme ownership and say, all right, let me look in the mirror and let me dive into what's going on. And I'm going to try to, I've always been out to like be the best that I can be no matter what it is I do. That's just always been my philosophy in life. It's a fault to some degree because everything I've ever done, I feel like I have to be the best at it.
There's benefits
to that, right? So the idea is, well, what can I be? And so I think men struggle with purpose, and we'll talk about that stuff later too. But it's my pursuit of like just trying to be excellent. Okay, I know I'm not going to be perfect at everything I do. I know I'm not going to be the perfect husband, the perfect father, perfect in business. I'm going to screw up, but why can't I strive to be perfect? Right? Why can't I strive to be the best version of myself I could be? Like I remember when I would see, and there's a like again, I don't want to get too far around this topic, but like I would see other men that were happy and go lucky, and I was like, what is it that they have that I don't? Like, why am I not happy? And there's a lot of background trauma that I won't go into right at this moment, but the idea would be I would look at other people and go, well, I want that. I want what they have, and I would piece things from each of these people. Like in my eyes, the people that are listening right now, they're here because they want to be better themselves. And so there's something that we bring to them that helps them to get better. And I think it's extreme ownership, it's extreme accountability, and then you have to take action to be better. Yeah. And so kind of going back to this point here, when we met, like you were the piece that I needed to take me to the next level. Yeah. I was already going in the right direction, but you showed me I love working out with you. I think, honestly, I pushed myself fairly hard in my workouts. I was building that.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have pushed it the way that you do? I don't know. Maybe one day I would have, but whatever. Like, we met. I think it's fantastic. It's been a bromance ever since we met, and I've loved it. But my point is, like, you helped me realize when it came to the kitchen, you helped me just fine tune a way to basically, like, realize I can do it.
Yes.
And my wife had helped me for a long time, and I know it was a little bit of a point with her where she's like, well, why didn't you do this under me? I needed her all these years, but I needed that one missing ingredient, which was you, to finally put me over the edge of, like, you can do this, and let's do it this way. And you just help, like, by the right questions, the right solutions, working together with each other to say, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? What do you like? What do you not like? Do it this way. And so for me, it finally clicked. Just after all these years of, like, wanting to be better in the kitchen, it finally clicked because I just kept taking those small incremental.
And it really is a switch, right? It really is. It's you go through this process, like you said, you did a week of prep. Kind of, I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to test this out. I'm going to see how it goes.
Yeah.
But as much as we do that, I find that there's a specific point in time that switch goes up or down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm good. And you. There's some maintenance you have to do to keep the switch down. We all fall off, but like I say, if you fall off the horse, just get back on.
Well, and let's be honest, like, when you fall off the horse, like, if you're not careful, like, it can be like you stay off for a while.
Oh yeah,
you have to be careful with it because it's just the shit food is good.
Yeah,
let's be real about it, right?
You cannot lie. A burger from McDonald's tastes great. It's fucking terrible for you, but it tastes good.
It tastes good, and so it's easy to be like, maybe one more time or whatever. So you can't do that, and it sounds. Some people might look at this as like, what's the word, shallow or superficial, but when I was eating some tuna yesterday, I don't like the taste of tuna. It's not my favorite thing, but I was looking at the vein in my forearm on every bite. Going, I like those veins. Yeah. I like that shit popping.
That's what I'm saying is you like the taste of how you looked way more than you like the taste of a McDonald's burger. And that's choice.
Put my hand on my abs when I'm feeling my 4-pack right there going, all right, lower fat, you're going to come out too by this tuna, doing stuff like that.
And I want to dive back into parts that you came up with there, right? So is mental health is a big thing, and I think that mental health comes with a couple of caveats that carries with. There's personal accountability for what you've done. There is actually dealing with the trauma, right? And I want to lay in on trauma because this is probably the biggest thing that holds some people back, right? And traumas aren't one thing. It's the same as ego, right? So when we talk about ego, leave your ego at the door. You have got multiple egos, right? There's not one ego that people carry. You carry an ego for this, you carry an ego for that. You carry an ego when I walk in the gym, I'm going to lift the same weight as the guy next to me, right? That's one type of ego.
Right.
That ego when you're having an argument with your spouse and for whatever reason you know that you at this particular point there's no point in arguing, but you carry on because that's another type of ego. So, and they're not all equal, right? And some egos are easy to let go of, some egos are difficult, right? Trauma is the same thing. You carry trauma, right, from life, and it's not necessarily always trauma. Trauma is when something's happened to you, like sexual abuse, that carries that PTSD, or is it you went over and you fought a war, and in that war you've seen some shit that no one else has seen. That's trauma, right? Then there's events that have happened in our life that contribute to how we see the world, right? It could be bad interactions with people, trust issues. There's a whole multitude, but trauma is the one that kind of holds us the most back because, again, the same as ego, there's not always the same level of trauma.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Some traumas you can let go. You're like, oh, this happened to me as a kid. Oh, okay, my dad treated me like shit when I was younger and he talked to me this way, so I can let go of that. Hey, Dad, you know what? You did this when I was younger, or if he's not around, you go sit by his grave.
Yeah.
You deal with it, you answer yourself, and you let it go. But there are traumas that we are very reluctant to sit down and deal with because those traumas may come with an enormous amount of pain.
Yes.
Right? And not necessarily pain of reliving the trauma. That trauma, bringing that trauma back to the surface.
It's emotional.
It's emotional. Now, as a man, we don't want to be emotional. Emotion's weak, right? Yeah. And it's very difficult for men to go and find help.
Yes.
Right? And unfortunately, a lot of the help that is out there doesn't always provide, and we spoke about the pharmaceutical industry. Psychology and psychiatry is very, very finely tuned within the medical industry, and to a degree, I'm not saying that psychology is a bad thing or going to a psychologist or a therapist is necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
However, you have to understand that the process of going to them is rehashing that consistently without a detrimental outcome. Now, one of the stats that I can pull up and people can go search this is the average session with a therapist. You need 600 sessions on average to start finding a route of exit. Now, we flip around and we go NLP and hypnosis, DMT, psilocybin, ibogaine, ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Right. Out of those 5, 4 of them require an external drug, right? Plant-based drug that you take that is going to put you into such a...
There's actually one more I've heard about is vibration therapy.
Vibration therapy. I haven't read too much into that.
I don't know a lot about it either, but I know a Marine who did it and had a lot of success.
Success to them, right. Yeah. So now you have these therapies. Now, ibogaine, once.
Yeah.
Right. DMT, once. Psilocybin microdosing, probably 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
NLP and hypnosis, 2 sessions.
Yeah.
Right. Why do I say this? Your trauma, right? All of those methods of using them. The difference between the first method, which is going to a therapist, and the ones I mentioned, the second ones require extreme accountability. If you have never taken DMT and you've never taken mushrooms or you've never taken any of this, and your sole purpose of taking it isn't to try and see the aliens. Your purpose of taking this is I have some shit inside me and I don't know what to do with it. Right? You do know what to do with it. What those drugs, those sessions do is they bring them all to the top, and then it's up to you to now kind of take those traumas and switch them out. Now, why do I focus on trauma? If you are not actively, right, I don't care who you are, if you are not actively dealing with your trauma, if you are sitting down, and I'm not saying you have to have everything figured out. I don't have everything figured out, right? If you are not actively going, you know what, I have trauma. We all do. And I'm actively trying to become better. That diet, this system, means nothing because you won't get the benefits from them. So my point of bringing up specifically of stop doing the lip service, right? Stop watching the motivational videos and go, oh, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Then you do it for one day and you fall off, right? Listening to your story, right? The backstory of all of that is you realize as a man and a human being that you are flawed. Right? When you realize that you are flawed, you realize, well, I don't like some of these flaws and I'm going to try and be better. And then you're going to sit back and go, I'm not going to try, I am going to be better. And then you're going to stand up and go, fuck this, I'm taking this control of my life. When you make that decision, it's no longer lip service. And that's the point I wanted to get through on this particular episode is once you are actively dealing and realizing, I've got some shit behind me. You know what? And I've treated people like shit. And I've done some shitty things. I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to take accountability. If you have people in your life that you've treated like shit, speak to them and apologize for it. Take accountability.
100%.
If you've been shitty to your spouse, right? If she's still with you, she fucking loves you. And you've been shitty to her, sit down with her and say, you know what? There's been some times past where I was dealing with some shit and I could have treated you better. And there's even times now, if you're married, everyone knows what we're talking about. If you're in a relationship, there are times where that person that's the closest, most important thing in the world, you treat them like absolute garbage.
Those are the ones you hurt the most.
Those are the things. I'm working on this. I know I do it. I don't like it. If you have traits, right, if you're trying to break the generational cycle, whether it be alcoholism, drug abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, the only way to break those cycles is to understand that they exist and don't succumb to them. Make a choice.
For sure.
And once you start actively working on those traumas, lip service becomes the secondary. And now what we're doing is now we're taking all that information. We're taking those tenets. We're talking about developing a program. A program where people can come in and we're going to show you from our experience what has worked for us of how you can implement an exercise program to take control of your health. Implement a diet. Implement an eating program that allows you to take control of things that you might have been struggling before. But at the same time, taking control of your relationships. Being a better human being. Being the change you want to see. So how we're planning to do this is we're planning to run these programs in a way where people don't feel like we're just telling you, you should do this, this, and this. And we're doing it from a perspective of, we're not perfect. Right? Whether we were billionaires, we're
doing all this shit too.
We're doing it with you at the same time. And let me tell you a secret, right? It's not the secret, but it's a secret. no one has all this shit figured out.
That's right.
It is, if you are a man who is trying to be better in the world, it is a constant battle.
It is.
Some days are easier than others, but the work never ends.
Yeah.
This is the same as retirement. You retire to die, right? The minute that you assume that you have got everything figured out, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to my next point. This is going on staying humble.
Yeah.
Stay humble, stay hungry. Once you feel like you've got some things in hand, money's good, relationships good, body looks good, nutrition's on point, I'm in touch with my spirituality, I meditate, I pray, I go to church, I feel like the world is good. That's a point.
Yeah.
When you're in that point, don't get too comfortable. Don't be humble.
Let me pause you on humble, because I there's so much that I could throw in there about everything that you just said about just the traumas, the relationship
Throw it in,
piece.
brother.
Like, there's so much that I've experienced personally. Like,
that's why we're here. Tell us what you went through.
yeah, well, I think, like, man, I've done all the shit you're not supposed to do. Like, relationship wise, I was a terrible fucking husband. Not on purpose.
Let me throw that in. You're not alone.
Right.
Right.
I know.
You know this, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I point on that is because a lot of times when we take this on, men take a lot of trauma on their own. We're all guilty of this.
Well, let me give you an exact example of that. Like, I have a thread that's not as active as it used to be, but I was a college baseball player thread where for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years we were on a text thread together all the time, texting just about every day, giving each other absolute hell and shit and banter about just being whatever we were. We all were going through some shit. Mm-hmm. We were all going through some life struggles, but we never did a very good job of helping each other through the struggles. I love those dudes to death. I would do anything for any one of them, and I'm sure some of them will hear this. But we never did a good job of helping each other through our struggles in that thread.
Yeah.
Individually, if we called each other, we could get some real bro moments.
Yeah.
But even then, it was hard. It was a struggle to be like, hey, dude, like, this is what I'm going through. Like, what do I do? And so, is that pride? Is it ego? I don't know what it is. I think it's that we often struggle alone as men because we're afraid to get help. And why that is, I don't know. For me, like, I've never been afraid to say I have a problem to a certain degree, but at the same time, I was afraid to say I have a problem because I always thought I had my stuff together. I always thought I was like doing good by the world and by myself and by my family. And until like I really realized like my shit was in a bad place, relationship wise, I was like, wow, this is not where I thought I was. Yeah. And so understanding and hearing feedback of like, and I think this is a really important thing for like, just kind of like pop in my head here, for men to create emotionally safe space for their women in their lives is really important.
Yeah. But let's dive into that.
Yeah.
Right. Because you've brought up a couple of really good points. My opinion is the reason that men, right, us as men, don't look for help is because we're the providers.
Yeah.
We carry the weight on our shoulders.
Yeah.
We're responsible for it, and we are stubborn as fuck.
No doubt.
Right. Now, here's the thing is, I don't say that men need to get into a cry group together and have a tear out, right? That's just the stupidest thing.
That's
right?
dumb. I hate that.
Right. I don't do that shit. You don't do that shit. I'm never doing that shit.
I'll be honest with you. Like, if you ever call me one day and you're like, there's a big moment, like, God forbid something bad happened, to Helene, and you call me emotionally, like, I'd be supportive.
Yeah.
But if you call me like emotional about, you wouldn't do this, but like if you were to call me emotional about stuff like on a regular basis, I would be like, dude, suck it the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, just stop. But I will say, like, I have an example of exactly why men don't ask for help. When I was in a corporate job, I was like tapped. Like, I had all this on my plate. I was stressed out. I was literally struggling to handle some things. And I had one large account that I went to my boss to, and I just said, hey, and another man. I was like, hey, boss, like, I'll keep his name to me for protection of him, but like, hey, boss, I can't handle this account. I just got too much on my plate. And so he called another person in. There's a peer. First thing out of his mouth was, hey, so-and-so, Suba can't handle this. I need you to take this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck, like, that's not what I meant. And this was somebody I was competing with anyways, like competing in my job. And it wasn't what I meant. I could handle it, but I was just like, you told me if I needed something to reprieve off my plate to tell you, so I do. And the way you said it to someone else was like as a man, he's calling another man saying like, hey, Suba can't handle it.
Yeah.
So I viewed it as a weakness. That's how I took it. That's how it was received by the other guy. That's how I received it. So what that leads to is I was like, never again. Never again will I ask for help. So I didn't.
And your story is a resonation of every single man, and the reason they don't ask for help is somewhere in their life they reached out, they said something, they did something, they were reaching for help. What you were doing is you felt overwhelmed and you were reaching out for help. And what the other men did, right, was use that as a point of weakness to drive someone else to do the result they want. Now, this comes into a second one. Have you ever heard of the divine masculine?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it off the top of my head at the moment. So.
Right, so you hear a lot of talk about toxic masculinity, right? And then you in the same breath, you hear, I'd say you get a big thing of toxic femininity.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the traits we inherently have as men and women, right? And those traits, depending on who's looking at them, can be seen as toxic. Now, my honest opinion is there's no such thing as toxic masculine. You can't, masculine and toxic doesn't go together. You can't be toxic in what you are, right? However, divine masculinity and divine femininity is the point by where we as a society stop seeing each other as competition, stop seeing each other of what we can take from each other, and start lifting each other up. We see divine masculine all the time. We see it in the gym. We see it in the gym where we bring a guy in that's just starting out, doesn't know what to do, and he's pulling and he's doing it, and we're standing there and we are screaming and rooting for him through the fucking rafters because we want him to succeed.
That's right.
It's the same thing as when you and me are doing the same exercise, and for whatever reason you walk 20 feet further than I do. I'm not angry. I'm fucking thrilled.
I'm same. Right back at you.
That's divine masculine, right? Divine feminine is the same thing. It's women's traits where women push each other down to try and get jockey for position, right? Which is a natural thing we do as humans. If we want to progress as a society, we have to realize that we're not in that space anymore.
Right.
So, if in that situation, the divine masculine is this, right? Kevin comes to the office, right? I'll play whoever your manager was, and you go, listen, I'm struggling with this account. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to follow through with it, and I don't want to let the client down. Response, right? What did he do? He picked up a phone and go, hey, Super can't handle this shit. Come in, you take it over.
Yep.
Great. Divine masculine. Okay, Kev, is there anything happening in your life, right, where you feel you can't handle this? Is this an issue whereby you just have too much on your plate, whether it be personal or work?
Yeah.
Or is there something within this account that you haven't dealt with before that maybe you and me can hash out, and maybe I can jump in and let's see how we can get this client nailed?
Yeah.
Right. What he's doing there is he's taking the masculine side, and now he's treating you like a brother.
Right.
And he's going, you are struggling with something. How can we bring this together? Now, your response could be, listen, I've got personal issues at home. I don't know what the issues were, but let's say I've got personal issues at home.
Yeah.
I just feel really overwhelmed, right? And I'm not sure I can get this out. Okay, if I helped you, could you? Yes, great. So what could we do?
Yeah.
Do you need me to speak to the client? What do you need me to do? So instead of pushing you down, bringing someone else in, what I'm doing is I'm looking at you as a human being, as a brother.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing you as a commodity. I'm not seeing you as a gladiator that I can throw to the lions, just get rid of when I need to. I'm looking at you as a human being, as a divine masculine man, and I'm going, brother, what can I do to pick you up?
That's right.
What do you need?
And to be fair to that boss, because I do love him, he, if he ever listens to this, I want him to know, like, he was actually one of the best bosses I ever had. Yeah. And he generally did that with me. That was just one exact example. And we had a fun conversation about it at a later time. But, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, when it's all about how, I think what's really important in general, like, there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs listening to us. Human beings, we're all equals. At the end of the day, we all put our pants on the same way.
Yeah.
Right? There's nobody special. There's no special sauce. There's nobody that was built differently than anybody else. People might choose to live their lives a different way, but it doesn't make us any better than anybody else. It's the idea that we choose to live a different way. We choose to live a different standard. So if you treat everyone with respect, if you treat everybody with equal care, concern, respect, you'd be amazed what you can get out of it. And I think that's a kind of an example, like with other men, where it's like, you know, it does matter how you approach it. And I think as the way, at least, you know, with us being the age that we are, there's a lot of like old school parents in the way they raised us, right? And so it's just like, fuck your feelings, like get over it, deal with it. And I think a lot of men have been faced with that for a long time.
Yeah, there's merit. Listen, there's merit in not falling into the trap of overstimulating problems to the point that you can't deal with them.
Yeah,
there is merit in saying, listen, rub your knees off, but there's a way to approach things.
Oh, for sure.
As men, right? With it, whether it be your kids, whether it be your wife, this way it's the same in a relationship, right? Yeah. And this is going to tie straight back into the humble part, right? Because what happens is you get into this comfortable scenario, right? And like in that job, like you say, he's a fantastic boss. This isn't a push down on the person, because again, when he did that, you don't know what pressure he was under. Yeah. You don't know what day he had. Did he have a fight with his wife? Did he have a shitty drive to work? You don't know.
That's right.
Right. And it's very important to treat everything from a point of love and kindness, to understand that anybody who's dealing with you don't know what they're going through.
Right.
Right. And then it's very important to establish that kindness should never be looked at as weakness.
For sure.
Right. Just because I'm trying to lift everybody else up and I'm sticking my hands out means if you're going to try and pull me down, you're going to have a fucking problem.
Yeah.
And it's to understand that dynamic. So what we want to try and do in men is realize that I've always had a philosophy, and this is when I was in corporate and I had big positions and I had a lot of people working under me. I still have people that worked for me in South Africa, native Africans, who are the most wonderful human beings, like the warmest, nicest people. I still get texts from them on Facebook going, when you're coming back we need you back, boss. Right. The way I approached them was, I don't care if you are cleaning the floors or you are the CEO, you will get treated the same way. Right. No one is above anyone else.
That's right.
Right. Work is work. Person is person. If I've got to instruct you and go, listen, you have to go clean the floor, you haven't done what you're supposed to do, that's one thing. Yeah. That doesn't change my treatment of you as a human being.
Yeah. I'll say, like, I see some guys out there that really take like hard-nosed approaches, and they're yellers and screamers and get stuff out of employees. Personally, I like the blend of the old school with the new school. Yes. Like, I like taking both approaches. I don't think screaming and yelling at any grown human being is a way to get anything done. I now, having been in the military, yes, there is a time and a place where you might have to raise your voice, but that's the military. But you're in a mission critical situation. You might have to elevate your voice.
You said it exactly. Time and place.
Right. There's time and places, right? So, like, to me, though, in business and general day-to-day exchanges in life, there's not a time and place for me to scream and belittle and just, like, downright get nasty with somebody to get things done.
We're in the gym and you're trying to pump out a deadlift. Fuck, absolutely. I'm going to scream as hard as I fucking can.
But you're not berating me. You're motivating me.
But there's an important thing is as long as you're doing everything, and that word is from a perspective of love and kindness, regardless of who you're dealing with, regardless of emotions.
But you're the first dude to fucking bro hug me or high five me or whatever when I get the weight up or whatever thing that I did. Like, you're screaming and cheering for me. You're motivating me. It's not berating me.
No.
I think, another aspect of this, like when it comes to being humble, something I wrote early on in a podcast is Warrior in the Garden that sticks into my head.
Oh, yeah, that's a great saying.
I just, I don't know, I've had so many experiences myself where I've dealt with this anger management issues of just, I've never put my hands on somebody, I've never physically done violence to my wife or kids or anybody in that nature.
But you're capable.
I'm capable, but my point is, like, but there's been like anger management issues at times, but just like something sets me off and I don't know why, and so trying to like understand that, like, okay, how do I control this? Like, anger should be a light switch. It shouldn't be something that just flies off at any given time.
You are 100% in control of it, and Jocko says this really well. Anger is a weakness, right? And when he says uncontrolled, he says it this way: uncontrolled anger is a weakness. Anger applied in the right way is not really anger, right? You're just channeling. Anger is a weakness.
I remember a story. I'll be honest, I don't even remember. It was like we were in training, getting ready to go overseas, and I was an intel guy, so I don't want to mislead people thinking I was like getting ready to go to like a firefight or something. But anyway, they trained us for that, so we were ready to do it if we had to. Mm-hmm. And the guy talked about channeling your fear and channeling the anger. And there was a attack on a checkpoint where there was like a private on the saw gun which is basically a machine gun for the average listener. And basically they had to pry it. They had the attack, or this, like, the vehicle that was approaching that was going to explode. He was shooting in the vehicle to stop it.
Yeah.
And when the whole thing was over, his finger was so clamped on the trigger that they had to peel his fingers off to stop him. He was exhausted all ammo.
Yeah.
And he was so afraid that he literally was clutching so tight that they had to peel him off.
Yeah.
And the point is, like, he channeled his fear.
Yes.
He channeled his anger.
Into what he needed at the time.
And into what he needed to do. And I know that's a combat example, but the point is, like, in anything we do in life, like, if we channel it the right way, like, fear is going to happen, anger is going to happen. Yeah. It's how you control it, how you channel it, how you use it that matters.
That's a good point. And going back is when you're on the path of self-discovery and trying to be the best version of yourself, right? And it doesn't matter what you're trying to attain. Whether you're trying to get if you're trying to attain a lot of money, at some point in attaining that money, you're going to realize money's not everything. Right? Is, the people that are around you that you love and you care for, that's what you really want the money for.
Right.
You want
it. Gives you resources.
Gives you resources, right? So I find when we're channeling, when we're talking about anger, especially when it comes to those people you love, and even not people you love, like, road rage is the most useless fucking thing I've ever seen, right? There is no reason to get angry. When you start, right, you and me have been down this path for a long time, when you start not just succumbing to anger and you start looking at it and going, why?
Yeah.
And then you dig down the reason, you realize that reason almost every single time has nothing to do with the person you're angry with.
Yeah.
It's got to do with you. It's accountability, as you said before.
Yeah.
Right? It's ownership.
Yeah.
When you can learn to master that, because what we want to be is we want to be masters of self. We want to be masters of our finances. We want to be masters of emotions. We want to be masters of health, fitness, spirit. We want to be masters as far as we possibly can be.
Yeah.
In trying to attain that, you need to understand that anger is useless.
It
does nothing for you. Part and parcel of that is I want to then step into being humble. Because when you get to a certain level and you go and you're getting these tenets done, it's consistent work, right?
Yeah.
You might have a good handle on finances. You might have a good handle on your health. You might have a good handle on your relationships. You might have a good relationship with God.
Yeah.
Right? And those things right now seem great.
Yeah.
Nothing lasts in the same way forever. Write it down. It never lasts. Right? Something is going to throw you off. But when you are in that prime position, one of the most important things, and I would say this would be the fifth tenet that you add to it, is being humble.
Yeah.
Realizing that at any point, whatever you've built can be taken away from you in an instant, be it by illness, death.
It's true.
It's not a constant.
Yeah.
Be humble. And one of the things that I find that helps me be humble is taking time to be thankful for what you have, how you have it, and be thankful for the fact that you are where you are.
Yeah, that's true. Like getting back to road rage type thoughts, where, I mean, like, we're pretty strong, capable guys. You've trained in jiu-jitsu. You're a pro wrestler at one point. I've done mixed martial arts stuff. I've done, boxing stuff. Still training Muay Thai here and there. Realistically, I could kick a lot of ass. Yeah. But I don't know who's got a gun. Let's be real, right?
And do I necessarily just want to be... Man,
Well, let me make the point I was going
to make. Make the point you want to make, because I got a good story behind
that.
But
my thoughts are like, what does it serve me to walk around with this chip on my shoulders where everywhere I go, I got this scowl on my face and I'm being angry with people? Naturally, I'm just an all serious type of person, so I know I'm intimidating in general when I'm walking around. But if I open the door to be inviting to someone, if I strike up a conversation with someone, if I'm intentional with trying, like when I go to the checkout at Publix in the grocery store, I open the conversation up versus stand there and be intimidating, I'm going to get a much better reaction on my day. Being the warrior in the garden is my mindset there, where I go, let me be inviting as a person, be a genuinely kind and nice person, because it's going to give me better interactions versus walking around with a scowl on my face looking for the fight, because when the fight comes presented to me, I can fight. I'm pretty good at it, to be honest with you.
You have nothing to prove to anybody.
No, I don't. But the idea is, like, even if I were to throw down, I kicked that guy's ass. What good comes of that? My kid saw me kick somebody's ass.
That's not necessarily a good thing. And in the same breath, I had this conversation with a good friend today, and this I'm going to explain some of the background where we came from and talk about the fundamentals when people talk about fighting, because most people don't understand violence, right? In this country, luckily, because you have so many military vets, they've seen some violence, so they have a good understanding, which is why a lot of them are super calm, really well-evened human beings.
You must have met some good veterans, because most of the veterans I know are pretty quick to fire off. So
met a couple of really good guys.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just kidding.
But in the same
there's
breath,
there's both.
What happens is when you understand violence,
Yeah.
right? And you understand the point is, I did security for a long time.
Yeah.
And when you, this is what I said, I got into very, very rarely did I ever get into a fight, right? That didn't have to do with the fact that I was a big guy. It didn't have to do with the fact that I was overly intimidating. I was super friendly. The reason that I most of the time avoided a fight is for two reasons. The first one is I saw it coming from a mile away and put actions in place to not let it get to that outcome.
Yeah.
Stop it before it happens.
Yeah.
Right. First thing, you want to avoid violence at all costs.
No doubt.
The second thing was establishing a line.
Yeah.
There is no referee.
Yeah.
There's no ring.
There's no
There's
fair
nothing,
fight.
right? And I have said this to people in the point where I've been in a situation in security and someone says, "Oh, we're going to throw down." It's a very simple thing. Do you understand that if you take the next steps, those steps may lead to your death?
Yeah.
I'm not overstating. I'm not threatening to kill you. If you are in the point that you want to actually throw down, I don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know how many friends you have behind you. I don't know if you have a gun. I don't know if you have a knife.
Yeah.
I don't know what your intentions are. I may have mental health issues. But I'm telling you that if you cross this line,
It's fact.
I'm done. And I will fight you till one of us is dead.
Yeah.
Or they tear me off you.
Yeah.
Or they tear you off me. But I am going into this today, and I'm not doing, there's no referee. I'm not standing there trying to box you. I'm not going to try and pull you down. I'm not going to try and fight an I'm not Conor McGregor. I am going to grab a bottle and I'm going to stab you in the face.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever is near me is going straight into your head.
Yeah.
Not because I want to hurt you, because you are establishing a line that I know once you've crossed that line, you have to make a decision. And I'm okay to die.
Right.
Are you okay to die? And every single time I had this speech, the guy went, "You know what? It's okay."
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Like, you want to cross the line, I'm okay.
Can I buy you a beer is a better answer.
Yeah. And that's usually where it went to. Like, why don't I buy you a drink and we move past this?
Yeah.
Right. Because there's a line that I'm sure many vets in this country know.
Yeah.
Right. That I will cross, and if I cross that line, I know.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. You're a big guy. I'm a big guy. If you had that line with me, I'd probably go, "Yeah, you're right. Let's go have a drink."
Yeah.
Like, I
it's
don't
not
want
worth
to go down that road.
because
it's not worth it.
because again, warrior in a garden, you realize that it is better to avoid violence than to engage in violence. And once you have that understanding of violence, you that's the warrior in a garden. I'm fully capable of violence. I do not want to engage in it.
That's right.
And part and parcel of that is if you're a person who tries to go and find a fight,
Yeah.
you have trauma to deal with.
Which exists.
Right, it does. If that were to do it, you have trauma. You are trying to. There's something inside you that you're trying to close a hole in. All of us have these problems. But if you are not aware of that trauma and you're not consistently trying to get into it, and humble falls straight into that, because humble people are people who know what consequences are if they engage in something. So you look at every human being as an individual instead of a group. Instead of trying to put people in a box, you give everybody the benefit of the doubt. That kindness is not weakness. It doesn't mean that you bend over for everybody. It doesn't mean that people can just manipulate you. It means that everybody gets a square peg when they come. This is it.
I think it's important for me to highlight something that so recently, depending on when people listen to this, but the recent event that happened in Louisiana with the bombing.
Yep.
I've got a guy that I follow that's out west. He was a former military guy. I was able to have some conversation with him personally a couple years ago, and he kind of really helped me open my eyes to a lot. Where what he said to me was very wise and eye-opening. Where he's like, "I'm always going to train so that I'm capable, and I don't want to ever have to use it, but I'm always going to be capable."
Always capable.
And based on what just happened in Louisiana, there's a lot of stuff out there. If you watch the Sean Ryan podcast about just threats and things of that nature, right? There's threats every day, everywhere you go. Am I a target? That's the way I see it. Yeah. Am I a target? And in my eyes, a few years ago, I was an easy target. Even though I didn't want to admit that to myself, I was, because I was out of shape. I was weak. I wasn't where I needed to be. I'm not an easy target anymore.
Yes.
And that's what's in my mindset. That's what's in my drive. Is I'm going to be the warrior in the garden,
Yes.
but I'm also going to be intimidating, and I'm going to be looked at, and they know I'm capable.
And the thing is Jordan Peterson had a great conversation. He's had a couple, but this specific one was where someone was trying to break him down for saying that men should be capable of violence, or men should be violent. The reporter who spoke to him said to him, "You say that men should be violent." He goes, "No, what I said is men should be capable of it."
That's right.
He goes, if you don't understand violence and you're not capable of violence, and you say you don't advocate for violence, it means nothing. You're not capable of it. What are you weighing in on?
Right.
But when you know you are capable of violence and you are capable of inflicting damage and you control it,
that's right.
That is the benefit. Now that goes back in again to why do you, as a man, if you can take control of your physicality, and it doesn't mean you have to be a 6'7", 300-pound giant. It means that with what you have, you put your limitations on call every fucking day.
Right.
Right. You go to the gym not to try and impress someone. You go to the gym to go, I'm going to see where I can push myself. Now, again, as you age, you want to take control and not put yourself in a position that you can't go tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. However, I think in our workouts, we do certain workouts where we
I was thinking about our cross-training workout.
fucking destroy ourselves.
Like our cross-training workouts, like I know we do a lot of heavy lifting, but like our cross-training is very functional.
Yes.
Like where we're
with heavy lifting,
but we have people like staring at and watching,
Yeah.
stopping their workouts to watch what we're doing. But if you ask me, like those are very functional workouts that if we were to ever have, like, let's be realistic. The bombing happens.
Yeah.
If you had to take someone's lifeless body or someone who was knocked unconscious, who's a dead-weighted person, 100 pounds of dead weight is very heavy. Like, it's very difficult to move.
But we could move it.
But we can move it.
Yes.
And we could throw that person over our shoulders and carry them if we had to, plus possibly carry others.
That's a good point.
But that's the idea, is like, we're training, one, because we like it and it's fun, but in the worst case scenario, God forbid, we're in a crisis.
There is definite, I will say this from a personal standpoint, is as much as I advocate for a strong cross training, this is my personal belief, is I love bodybuilding, right? I grew up with it. We all grew up with Arnold Schwarzenegger, so I'll always have a love for it. As much as I'm saying I have a love for bodybuilding, people who just do bodybuilding and go to the weight who are just training so they can look a certain way and train nothing else, so they don't have a good cardiovascular system.
Right.
They can't move. They're so overly developed in certain muscle groups that they can't touch their toes.
Right.
It's useless to me.
That's
right.
right.
In the same breath, I love powerlifting. I did powerlifting for years.
Yeah.
Right. Powerlifting is great because it tests you. It's all about how much weight you can lift. Awesome.
Yep.
But powerlifting is solely function is for you to lift that weight. Now, there's nothing else around that. So if you have a good bench, deadlift, and squat, awesome.
Right.
Right. But most of the people who do powerlifting, if you go look at them, there's a couple of great exceptions that are really well-rounded guys, but most of the guys are superficially fat.
Yeah.
Strong men are kind of in a weird place, right? Because in order to be a strong man, you've got to be a big fucking dude, right?
Yeah.
And you have to carry some fat in order to do some of those. But watch those strong men move.
Yeah.
Those guys will pick that fucking weight up.
They're pretty athletic, yeah.
Right, they're super athletic.
Yeah.
Right, now, obviously at that size, it limits. There's a limitation on movement, but they're super agile and they're super. To me, if you're going to choose something to be a well-rounded athlete, CrossFit or strongman are two great sides.
Yeah.
Right. What we're doing is when we go into the gym is I want to be strong, I want to be fast, I want to be functional, I want to be flexible, I want to be able to move. At any sense that you say, let's go for a sprint, I'll sprint.
I feel like we do it all.
Right, and we do all of that. I train that way, not because, in one sense, because I believe in the use it or lose it rule.
Yeah.
Use everything as much as possible, or it's gonna stop fucking working.
Yeah.
Your knees were evident of that, right? Is you had these knee problems that you came up with. The minute we started carefully, strategically pushing them, all of a sudden you're doing shit you couldn't do a year ago.
I mean, I'm not back to where I want to be with my knees. I was actually just telling Sam this yesterday, but it is a process, and eventually I'll get to where I want to be.
That's it.
But I have a friend I was just talking to today that he hurt himself. He hurt his back. And I was giving him some thoughts and knowledge around training through it, and he was his way was to rest through it. Yeah. And I'm like, no, train through it. We've talked about this a lot. Like, I don't know, man. I think this is a good episode. I think we should wrap wrap it up on some final thoughts. I feel like we covered some good ground. I really think it's a really, really good topic.
So, what I want to close off with is, as we started in, if you're going to approach doing something to better yourself, and you approach those, always approach it first dealing with your underlying trauma.
Yeah.
If you have things that are affecting you, whether personal, emotional, life story, I'm not saying go to a therapist. I'm not saying you have to choose one specific route, but you need to find a mechanism, whether it might be in meditation, it might be in deep thought, it might be in prayer.
Yeah.
But you need to find a mechanism to deal with your traumas, understand those traumas, so that you can acquire those tenets that you're looking for in mind, body, and spirit. Because without dealing with that trauma, those seem and become impossible.
Yeah, I would give a final thought on that too. Like, I you know me, I've done a little bit of it all. I've done the hypnosis, I've done actual talk therapy. I still see talk therapy here and there because I like to have that outlet. But it's my words of encouragement to anybody who's like not there doing therapy. When something happens that you're like, why did I do that? Why did I act that way? What caused that? Explore it.
Yeah.
If something triggers you, explore it. Like, lean into it and understand why. If a person triggers you, lean into that person and understand why they did what they did.
Yeah.
And if after the fact they still don't like you still don't like that person or whatever it is, that's okay. But at least you explored it.
And it may help you with the next one, right?
Yeah, and just recognizing that, like, our childhood, like, my therapist actually said to me, I'm the perfect disaster. I always laugh about it, but it's like, my childhood stuff, my deployment stuff, my marital stuff, my religious stuff, like, all the stuff blended together. He's like, you're the perfect disaster, right?
But you all are.
But we all are.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah. We all have something somewhere. We all have baggage, and so if you don't just lean into the why behind it, you'll never find that peace you're looking for.
And my final thought is, you said it, and I will say it again, and I will keep saying it in every episode. If you want to make yourself a better man, take accountability for everything you do.
Totally.
Whether you feel it's there's no such thing as someone else's fault. Take accountability. I think out of everything we'll do in this is, if you can take accountability for you and only you, everything else becomes clear.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's beautiful.
Lehman's Lab Podcast. Let's fucking go.
Good one.
Okay.